The members of the UN Security Council have expressed deep concern regarding the recent coup in Mali. The council members strongly condemned the mutiny in Mali on 18th of August. France and Niger called the urgent meeting, citing concerns over the developments in the West African nation. The coup led to the arrest of the President of the Republic, the Prime Minister, and several members of government. At the same time, African Union Chair and South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has decried the latest developments in the country. In a statement, President Ramaphosa has condemned the unconstitutional change of government in the country.
Mali has seen months of protests against alleged corruption and worsening insecurity in the country, where militants are active. The country's president, Ibrahim Keita, resigned on Tuesday after being detained by soldiers, along with Prime Minister Bobo Cissé.
If today certain elements of our armed forces want this to end through their intervention, do I really have a choice?
Mali is sinking into chaos, anarchy and insecurity, mostly due to the fault of the people who are in charge of its destiny. True, democracy doesn't rhyme with complacency, nor with weakness from the state's authority. The state must guarantee its citizens freedom and security.
South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has called for an immediate return to civilian rule and for the military to return to their barracks. He also urged the people of Mali to observe the rule of law and engage in a peaceful dialogue in order to resolve their challenges. A number of world leaders have also condemned the military coup against Mali's democratically elected government. It is not clear at this stage who is leading the revolt or who will govern in Keita's absence or what the mutineers want. Germany's Foreign Office says it is closely monitoring the situation. China said on Wednesday it is also opposed to regime change by force in Mali.
China is paying much attention to the Mali situation and opposes power reshuffle through force or abnormal means. China supports efforts from relevant countries, relevant regional organizations, especially African Union, Economic Community of West African States, to promote the peaceful resolution of the Mali crisis. We appeal to the relevant parties in Mali to take the view of the state and fundamental interests of people as the basis to solve the divergence through dialogue and consultation, to get back on track as soon as possible and maintain national stability and ethnic reunion.
But the mutineers, calling themselves the National Committee for the Salvation of the People, say they acted to prevent Mali from falling further into chaos. They also maintain that they want to restore stability and oversee a transition to elections.
Malians, we are not keen on power, but we are keen on the stability of the country, which will allow us to organize within a reasonable time limit general elections. And that would allow Mali to equip itself with strong institutions capable of handling our daily lives and restore confidence between government and the people.
Celebrations at the military coup in Mali continued on Wednesday around Independence Square in the capital, Bamako. People in the streets say they are satisfied with the coup because they wanted to end Keita's government, but most want a return to civilian government soon.
So for more on what's happening in Mali, I'm now joined via Zoom by Afro-Middle East Centre researcher Ebrahim Deen. Thanks so much indeed for joining us. Welcome to the programme. Always good to talk to you. The last time we spoke about Mali, the ECOWAS leaders had just left the country, and you were not optimistic that anything would change in terms of their initiative, but so much has happened since then.
Yes, I mean, nothing changed in terms of the negotiations, but I mean, the coup, happening, more about pay issue and security issues, but tapping into this mood, this growing opposition, and now the successful opposition in a sense militarily to President Ibrahim Keita's rule, and so it's now ECOWAS has reacted by suspending Mali. Not because it's a coup, but also because many within the ECOWAS who are close to the Mali issue have their own democratic legitimacy waning, and are also fearful of similar things happening in their countries.
Did this take people by surprise? We were looking to the streets and we were seeing the protests on the streets, and no one really saw what was happening stage left, that the military were some elements of the military were getting themselves ready to take charge.
It is a surprise. It's a surprise in the timing, not in the actual coup. There were murmurings of a coup in October last year. Many Malian soldiers have died. They've faced the brunt of the militancy in the north and now the center of the country, which is continuing. And so conditions for the military personnel have been worsening and deteriorating. And so we saw military protests. We saw wives of military officials protest last year. But it's the timing, which is, many didn't see that, most saw change happening through the opposition protests, which, happened last week and was supposed to happen tomorrow and Friday again. But tapping into this mood, the soldiers mounted this mutiny, which is not uncommon in Mali. We saw a mutiny in 2012. Basically now forced the president to resign and have detained him and closed the country's borders.
All right, you talk about this mutiny in 2012, and I suppose for many people that's just the other day, and this is déjà vu. How did the ECOWAS and the international community deal with that coup as a blueprint for what's happening now?
I think some of the conditions are very similar in that the mutiny in 2012 happened after much of the country was overrun after the Libyan civil war by the Tuareg rebels. And so, we're seeing a similar situation in the sense that the Malians' security in the north, in the center, is deteriorating. What was different in 2012 was that there was a militant group, an Islamist militant group, which forced, the French and the international community to send in troops to protect caretaker government. So they did force on, the coup plotters the formation of a caretaker government, which most are talking about right now. But as different to this time, last time, there was the growing insurgency, the takeover of the north by the militant group Ansar Deen. Now it's a lot more, the group is stronger, but, there may be a less willingness to dispatch new troops. But, in saying so, there's already a UN force in the country, there's a French force in the country, and being very cleverly, the coup plotters or the colonels in charge of the coup have basically said that they will continue Mali's current trajectory in terms of its fight against the militants to try and ensure this support. And that's why, we look at France, we look at the US, the UN, all of them are calling for negotiations, they're calling for dialogue. None of them so far has called to reinstate Keita. So they do understand the fact that, he has become very unpopular, but they do also want to secure, the continued fight against the militants in the north and center of the country.
Is there anything that the AU, United Nations, ECOWAS can actually do other than issue statements?
I think Mali is, unlike many other countries, very dependent on UN and AU support, specifically the fight against militancy. And so they have that level. And we already seen, the colonels already try and appeal to that level and say that this is, they'll continue cooperation with the G5, continue cooperation with the UN's mission in Mali. And so that is there. But, in saying so, in 2012, 2013, after the coup, Mali somehow returned back to some state of normalcy. And so it does seem as if this will be a similar case. The coup plotters have called on the opposition and other political parties and civilian social services, NGOs and civil society organizations to negotiate. But for this to happen and for a real democratic transition to happen, the AU, ECOWAS are going to have to carry on putting force or putting pressure on the military and try to ensure that, unlike what happened in 2013, where there was a security approach where democracy was only really sustained in Bamako and not in the center and north of the country, that the new democratic alternative actually considers these factors, the Anafis Accords, which were to incorporate parts of the north back into the political system. Because if this doesn't, or if this fails, there'll be another coup in another 8-9 years.
All right, so President Keita resigned under duress. Is this the end of him, or can ECOWAS, the AU, insist that he be reinstated? Or are we now looking actually to new civilian leaders?
It seems as if it's there, because it's not just the coup. I mean, Keita, as we spoke about a few weeks ago, is very unpopular. And so, he's lost his legitimacy both in terms of the security from within the military and from the civilian population. And that's why we're seeing this recognition from institutions such as the AU, such as the UN, such as the EU, that we can just call, even the Chinese, calling for dialogue and a return to civilian rule, but not calling for the reinstatement of Keita, because unfortunately it seems as if that boat has sailed.
So what of the opposition groupings that have been leading the protests on the streets? They've almost had the rug swept from under their feet. Do they have a place in what happens next, or are they also bystanders?
There's no evidence that has shown that they were in communication or were involved in any planning of this coup. But in saying so, they have a very important role in terms of legitimizing or delegitimizing this new regime, and that's a very significant and critical role. And it's yet to see. It's very easy just to give legitimacy to the coup plotters because they. My enemy of my enemy is my friend. But for substantive change to happen, there needs to be a process where, the opposition becomes a lot more pragmatic and uses this new, they can provide legitimacy to the coup. Using this new power they have to actually negotiate a situation where there's more participation, where there's less corruption, where there's a new approach to tackling the militancy, similar to, in a sense, to Sudan, where the Sudanese opposition realize that they're not in power, but use their popular mandate to actually try and gain concessions, and they've been doing so for the past year.
All right. Emmanuel Macron has been busy trying to manage the situation from Paris via New York. Has France's position in Mali changed in this moment, or this relationship between France and Mali will find its way again, no matter who comes into power?
I think France won't give up Mali very easily, or that easily. And so I think Emmanuel Macron is trying to find a way where he can maintain France's influence, because a lot of the protests, even from within the military and the population, are very opposed to the French role. Basically, they've said that, the French has come in 2013, and what's happened since? Militancy has increased, not decreased. Mm-hmm. And so Macron is not going to, not going to give up Mali very easily, but he's trying to respond to the situation and trying to protect France's interests in the country. That's why he's kept quiet. France has not said anything about the coup. In a sense, they just called on the UN and not criticized what's happened. But in saying so, it does seem as if France's role will be put under more pressure. If with with the new regime, and especially if the civilian components, so if the opposition parties and civil society have some say, because they are very critical of the French rule.
All right, Ebrahim Deen, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed, as always, for your brilliant insights on the situation in Mali. Thanks so much indeed for your time.
Thanks for having me.